Welcome, readers, to the first official episode of Around the Lake, featuring staff from the Ithaca Times and the Finger Lakes Community Newspapers. This is a new weekly roundtable that we hope to bring to you live from the Pegasus Studios in lovely Ithaca, New York. We hope to bring this to you every single week, in which we get around the table, talk about some of the news happening in and around our county, and maybe drop in a few opinions here and there. And so we're excited to be here. I'm Lou DePietro. I'm an associate editor with the Ithaca Times. I'm joined today by Mike Nasello. He is the reporter for the Ithaca Times. To my right is Glynis Hart. She is the editor of the Finger Lakes Community Newspapers. And we also have Carrie Blakinger, who is a reporter with the Finger Lakes Community Newspapers, predominantly reporting down in the southern parts of Tompkins County. So we're going to jump right into it today. First up on the docket, Canopy Hotel. Hilton Hotels has proposed, they've pitched a new hotel for downtown Ithaca. Mike, fill us in on the details, please.
Well, first off, Lou, I just would like to say that my last name is Nasella, for those out there, not Nasello, but that's just another thing. But back to the Canopy Hotel. So what the city did last week was it okayed the transfer of land that is proposed to be the site of the hotel, which is right behind the Carey building, for those that are
the old mayor's building.
The old mayor's building. And so this used to be a 120-room Hampton Inn and Suites. In the recent weeks, it's become this new chain. So Hilton owns Hampton Inn, so it's now a Hilton Canopy. And this is a very kitschy line of hotels. And the hot word seems to be in everything that I cover lately is artisanal. It's an artisanal hotel. It'll have a very nice restaurant, and it'll be arty and all that fun stuff. And so it is now proposed to be a Canopy Hotel. And it's 123 rooms, and so
It's another
How
hotel.
tall is this?
this is now going to be 7 stories, and it is part of the notorious hotel boom that is taking place within the city, because you also have the 160-room Marriott that's breaking ground as we speak, more or less. And so the Canopy is still in the early stages of city planning. What happened last week was that the city gave the okay for Ithaca Urban Renewal Agency to go ahead with the negotiations to sell this land to Hilton.
So it's definitely not a done deal.
Definitely not a done deal, but if the city wasn't enthusiastic about it, they could have kind of nipped it in the bud last week. And they didn't do that. It was a unanimous vote by Common Council. There were some touching points in terms of how much the Canopy employees are going to be paid, and whether or not turning this parking lot, which is a pretty popular parking lot, into a 7-story hotel. Some of the local...
This is the CSMA parking lot.
Yes, so some of the local business owners, particularly Julie Schrader, who's the owner of Homespun, has been up in arms about this because she claims that her customers use this parking lot to get to her business, and she feels that it's going to have a dramatic impact on her business and some of the other businesses like Old Goat around there. But to be honest, she's been really the only one that's been vocal about it. I spoke to some of the other owners in the area, such as Old Goat, and they're kind of 50-50. While they like that parking lot for their customers, especially for deliveries, they also are kind of intrigued by the possibility of putting a hotel right near their business, because if you visit Ithaca from out of town and you get here and it's 20 degrees, and now there's a Old Goat which sells winter gear, it's pretty good for them.
Right, sure. Well, I guess that begs the question, how many hotels do we need? I mean, this is a question that we covered in the Times, or you wrote the story, did you not?
Yeah, so...
And this was 2 months ago. It was like, how many rooms does this city really need?
Right, and I think it's anticipated by 2017 there's going to be close to 300 more hotel rooms between this proposed Canopy Hotel and the 160-room Marriott. And so that's going to have a dramatic impact on the hospitality market in Ithaca, which right now is doing extremely well. They just had a record summer. Bruce Stoff, the director of the Visitors Bureau, said that, until the market reaches saturation, it's just pretty much a known fact that hotels are going to try to come into the city, and that's what's happening.
And those dollars, which again feed the tourism, local tourism around here, those dollars, they fund things like T-Berg Winterfest, which we will get into in a little bit, but that's what those dollars are used for. Let's jump into the county budgets too. Around the county, actually, we have Tompkins County just are coming close to wrapping up their county budget process, and also in the outlying towns. They've pretty much finalized their 2015 budgets. Carrie, you've kind of been in all those boardrooms, so fill us in.
Yes. So this is the budget document for Tompkins County.
I love it.
Yes. Public Information Officer Marsha Lynch gives these out to the press. Marsha's great. And also, while we're talking about budgets, I should say that Joe Mariana, our county administrator, is awesome. He's so good that Cortland called him in to help out with their budget. So he's been great about answering questions. I've totally become a budget groupie because of him, and and I have a good working understanding of budgets at this point. So how it works basically is that the departments and agencies within the county are told, you have to cut your budget by this much. Departments, I think, was 1%, and agencies could go 1% over last year's, and that's their target budget. They have to, they have to try to make their budget stay in that target. And if they want to exceed that, then they put in over-target requests. So Joe Mariana takes all these proposed budgets and over-target requests and puts them into this massive document. And then he decides which ones he's going to recommend. There were like 1.2 million in over-target requests from agencies and departments, and he recommended about 2/3 of that. And so that was the budget that he then goes and gives to the legislators. And the legislators from there decide if they're going to accept his recommendations for which over-target requests to go with or not. And then after going through all the over-target requests they've already been given, then they make up their own if they want to add things.
What is the Tompkins County budget? How big is it? What are we talking about in terms of dollars?
What Joe originally suggested was 180 million. And I mean, they've added a little more through their amendments. So I mean, it's a little over 180 million at this point total. 46 million in property taxes.
Okay, so
is my county bill going up next year?
A little, not a lot.
A couple cents on the tax rate, if I.
Right, on the tax. Actually, the tax rate went down.
Oh, it did.
So
Cool.
the tax originally they thought their tax levy. Well, the tax levy is the total amount of property taxes collected for the county. So according to the property tax cap, it can only go up by a certain amount. Tompkins County's amount was originally 2.35. So this budget that Joe came out with was 2.34% increase. And then as the year progressed, they realized their tax cap was going to be higher. Now it's all the way up to 3.14, but they came in at 2.5.
Carrie, what are some of the, I guess, more sexy takeaways from this budget? I know in Ithaca, in the city, they're adding 6 police officers, and police officers has been a hot button topic. Is there anything like that in the county?
Well,
that's a
there is,
takeaway?
but first I wanted to finish answering about the tax rate. So
Yeah, take it easy, Mike.
But I'm getting there. I'm getting
First
there.
time on TV.
So they ended up with a 2.5% levy increase. Despite the levy increase, the tax rate in terms of dollars of taxes paid per $1,000 of assessed value went down because the total assessed value in the county went up. Some of that is new lumber, but a lot of that is increased assessments. Despite the fact that the tax rate went down, the average taxpayer is still paying more because the average home is worth more.
Yeah.
It went from $163,000 was the median valued home to $165,000 this year. So it's an $8.67 increase, $8.67 for an owner of a median value $165,000 home.
So, which means that because they brought it underneath the cap,
Yes.
we get that state incentive, which comes out to roughly $7.
No, they get back exactly what the increase was.
Oh.
So the increase was $8.67.
Sweet.
You get that whole $8.67
Subway
back
sandwiches,
from the state.
Friday night.
Right?
Actually, we like to keep things local, so let's spend that $8.60 in the struggling commons.
Right.
Jimmy John's. I'm sorry. I shop local.
Or Casablanca. They really hurt.
But to answer your question about what the big things were in the budget, one was refunding a position at OAR. The jail alternatives task force
Sure.
met all year to try to figure out ways to reduce the county jail population. One of their recommendations, one of the few that actually required an immediate cash outlay, was restarting a 3rd position at OAR. There used to be 3 and then went down to 2, so now they're going to be hiring a third, which will increase the number of bails that they can do per year. I think it was in the 10 to 15 range. They thought they could do that many more.
And those police officers that you talked about, that's adding in police officers that
him.
were cut, weren't they?
No, yeah, police officers is city budget.
That's
Right.
city budget,
Okay.
though. Yeah. Also in the county budget was giving the airport a break. They've been struggling,
Right.
and there's certain things that they've been paying the county for. They don't have their own bookkeepers or attorney, things like that, and they've been paying the county for services like that. And the county's just not going to charge them for those things for the next 3 years, which comes out to, I think it was 165.
120, six figures.
Yeah,
So they got a
it's
nice
in the
breakdown.
hundreds of thousands, 100-something thousand per year for the next 3 years.
I was talking to a legislator this past week, and I asked them, in the past 5 years after the housing collapse, and those were really tough years coming out of that time. Like, how'd the budget process go this year? Was it any easier? And this person said, yeah, actually, it's because we have a really great administrative staff that puts together a really easy to understand document. And believe me, speaking from a reporter, having looked at this document before, it's kind of a real good source of information that's kind of easy to understand. It's not so archaic and
And Joe's great
ton of
about
numbers
explaining
weight.
it. I mean, he has answered every question I've asked and gone out and done extra research. I asked him a hypothetical question about another county's budget, and he did research and came back to me with an answer.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
So he
and
really helps.
And a Cuse guy, mind you.
Yes.
Towns. Let's talk about towns. First off, the county budget's going to wrap up when here? They're doing a public hearing at some
No,
point?
they did their public hearing.
Okay.
Apparently, it was 15 minutes long, and not many people showed up.
Okay.
The information session a month earlier, Ray Schlather showed up for, and I think we got a story out of that.
Sure.
But yeah, so I think Tuesday is probably when they're going to vote on it, because I think that's the last meeting before the budget deadline, which is November 20th.
Cool. Let's roll through some of the towns real quick. We got Spencer, Newfield. They've recently.
So Newfield is going to be under the tax cap, but barely. That was tough for them. 2.29% levy increase, maybe, I think.
Right.
And Candor is actually doing no levy increase at all. They had some reserves and just very frugal budgeting. But Spencer is surprisingly going to exceed their tax cap.
2.78 or
Right?
5%. I've heard both
What are
numbers.
they- what are they doing
I
with
think
the-
the 2.78 was the right number.
2.78. Okay. They had a meeting last night.
Last night and the night before. And it's surprising when such a conservative area exceeds their budget, because that's more rare in such a conservative area. But so they're cutting some from library funding, some from I think they were going to pay off the debt sooner, which they're not going to do. They're just going to pay it, just not sooner.
Right.
Get rid of it. And but they apparently someone who was at the meeting told me that they also voted to increase their own salaries, which is not actually a substantial. It was a 2% increase, given what salaries are for councilmen. It's not a huge increase, but apparently it really stuck in the craw of some people that were there that were mad that
Well, they cut $5,000 from the library budget,
but then gave themselves
which is a third
raises.
of the library budget.
Yeah,
So,
a third of the town's contribution. There are
Okay.
other contributors to the library budget.
okay.
Let's jump up to South Seneca.
South
I want
Seneca.
to talk about the distance learning. Glynis was up at the South Seneca Middle School visiting with Gertrude Schaefer. They have this.
Yep.
If you're not aware of South Seneca schools, they have this very dynamic distance learning class, and they bring in all sorts of visitors from all across the world, really, and they talk to these kids just about their life experiences, and the kids, of course, learn about other cultures. So,
Well, Gertrude Schaefer has a particular connection with the Lost Boys of Sudan, and so some of them have come back year after year. This year she has Dennis Okima, who was from Uganda, come back. And Dennis, this is his 4th year that he's come back. He had a really interesting story. He was kidnapped and he was forced into the Lord's Revolutionary Army in Uganda under notorious warlord Joseph Kony. He escaped. He was 10 years old when he was kidnapped. He escaped after not very many months. His uncle was conscripted with him. His uncle did not make it out, and I think his father, they took Dennis and his uncle because they couldn't find his father. So anyway, Dennis escaped. He found his mother again, but then very shortly after that, she died. So after Idi Amin was deposed, it was still pretty chaotic. And it's been chaotic ever since. They're still under a dictator. And so there were no schools, there were people getting shot in the streets and so on. And the kids, when it got quiet, they would go out in the streets and they would play. And they would play war games. They would pretend to shoot each other. This lady, Rebecca Abitamo Odankara, watched the kids playing in the street. She came out and said to Dennis, I'll teach you to write. And so she collected him and some other kids, sat under a tree, taught these kids how to read and write. She founded a school which is now got 3,000 pupils. Dennis graduated from there. He went to Kampala University. He came to the United States, and he has just recently got his graduate degree. And so Dennis comes back to speak to Gertrude Schaefer's class about his life, and this time he brought back that lady, his teacher, and said, this is my mom. She adopted me. It was super cool. And some of the kids have seen Dennis come back, every year for 4 years. So that is a very cool thing. And the kids in South Seneca also, they do a walk for water every year. They all tote, a gallon of water 3 miles because that's what kids in Sudan are doing. And they raise money and they send money to this UNIFAT school in Uganda. So that was a very cool story coming out of South Seneca schools. It's cool that the kids do that.
Gladys, a story that heavy, are the kids at an age where, what's their reactions when they hear something like that? Are they at a...
They're really sympathetic. And these are middle school kids. These are not, they start, and the distance learning classes are in the middle school. She has 6th graders, 7th graders, and 8th graders, so their response is really pretty immediate, they want to help.
That's impressive.
And they do.
Remembering myself as a middle schooler, I'm not sure if I would have had
They actually,
right.
Some of our students actually marched on the Capitol.
Yeah.
They've done some pretty intense things. They've done some demonstrations. And Glynis mentioned the Walk for Water, a yearly thing that they've been doing for several years now, raising money to purchase a well for in Juba? Yep,
right.
In the Sudan. And I think it was last year they raised enough money to buy. They raised more than 10 grand to purchase this well. She was going to fly over there. Gertrude was going to fly over there and hand them the check and say, here you go.
But it was too dangerous.
Yeah, it was shortly after that, there was some unrest there, and she had to cancel. So they're still sitting on that money, and she told me last week we're still planning on getting that money over there. So.
But last week they handed Dennis a check for $607 that the kids had raised over a group of bake sales, and this goes to this UNIFAT school.
Yeah, South Seneca's.
Very
Their distance
cool.
learning class is really really impressive thing. Yeah. Speaking of which, down the street in Ovid, the Firehouse Brewery, which is kind of been in the works
to drink,
for some,
which is not water.
This has been in the work for probably about a couple years now. The owner of Aramita Winery, which is in Lodi, a great winery, by the way, really cool, in an old church. That owner has partnered with another business.
He's partnered with another couple people. Joshua Parker, who is the owner of Aramita Winery. Let's see, Bob Masserini. I'm forgetting the other two partners' names, but at any rate, they bought the old firehouse building, which is a really cool building. It was given to the town of Ovid, or the village of Ovid, by Walter Ford, who also gave the Edith B. Ford Library in honor of his wife.
There was some controversy there too, was there not? Involving the library and the firehouse. The firehouse was somehow willed. No?
This I didn't hear about.
All right, well, there'll be a story for another time.
I contacted Naomi Brewer, who is the Ovid historian, to see what the story was with that old building. It's really beautiful. It's got a marble lobby. But at any rate, the fire trucks got too big to fit in the Ovid firehouse, and so they had to do something. Mayor David Terry of Ovid Village put a sign up in front of the firehouse last year. What would you do with this building? So Joshua Parker, who's kind of an entrepreneur, saw that sign and knew exactly what he wanted to do with that building. He wants to get into the brewery and business, do production for Aramita Winery, and also start distilling. So they have started, the brewery is open. You can go in and taste these different craft beers. And the distillery is on its way. They just need to get the labels okayed.
And then you can go across the streets with the Three Bears.
Right, and then you can
Great place. Cool
Yep.
spot to walk around. Let's go back down to Spencer, by the way. Carrie, take it away for the journalism program that you two actually set up down in Spencer.
We did.
Go ahead and tell
we did.
folks about this.
So yeah, over the summer, we had talked about the possibility of giving the kids at Spencer Van Etten a page in the paper every month. And when I was at an event in Spencer, I was talking to Doug Thornton, who is a substitute teacher in the school district and is just very involved in the community. And he was like, you know what, I think I know who would want to run this. And so he got in touch with the English teacher, William Dove, and they got together a club, a journalism club. So they've got 5 or 6 students that are in the club. And I went there and spoke to them and, told them what our expectations were and, some of the basics of journalism. Made up a whole style document for them and gave them tons of handouts.
And here it is.
And
you should hold up the page.
Yes.
Very cool. Thanks to the Spencer Van Etten
Yes.
How the
Journalism
stories
Club.
come out?
Oh, they were.
They're
You know
good.
what? I was impressed how little editing they required, actually. But I mean, we asked for short stories because we wanted to fit 3 on a page.
They're going to put us out of a job.
Yeah. And this is in the Spencer Random Harvest, correct?
Yes, but it also ran in the Candor Chronicle and I think in the Newfield News, right?
Yeah.
So, cool. Let's, real quick on the Candor Schools.
Yeah.
District capital
passed.
project was approved.
It was approved. Yeah,
21
not by a
mil.
lot, but yeah, it was approved.
All right, $21 million by a lot? Not by a lot?
Not by a lot.
And what is that money being used for?
Good question.
Some security improvements, some technology improvements, redoing the entrances to the schools, the driveway. And getting a new bus garage. Well, getting an old building to renovate as a bus garage.
All right, so they're doing some heavy renovations, it sounds like. I was thinking at 21 million, there's got to be some like new lumber or something else.
Well, there's no new lumber. They're not like building new classroom space.
Okay.
But they didn't get new buildings after the flood of 2011, and parts of the high school were underwater, including the bus garage. So I seem to recall that bus garage has needed
they just,
fixing for a while.
Yeah, they've had some other capital work they've done in the past few years too.
Let's go to Trumansburg. Glynis, tell us about the Winterfest.
Trumansburg.
Which it sounds like may or may not happen. We don't know.
Trumansburg, yeah, the Winterfest might be in doubt. The village board meeting on Monday had been over the deadline for the Chamber of Commerce to get the paperwork together. Insurance, who's going to handle security. And so we don't really know if Winterfest is going to happen this year. The big question is that they close off Route 96, which is a state road that goes right through the middle of Trumansburg. They need to do it for a couple of hours, and in order to do that, you have to reroute the traffic. So you need a permit from the DOT, and then you need to have enough cops and firefighters to tell the trucks where to go, prevent accidents, and so on. So we will see.
And usually it happens first week of December.
Yeah.
You live in Trumansburg.
I know, man. The Teaberg Winterfest is a good time. They usually bring out like a chainsaw ice sculpture guy.
Right, they
or
got
like Hilby.
Hilby's
Who's basically
always
the
out there.
coolest dude in this county. Hilby comes out, the German juggling boy, and he comes out and entertains the kids, and they have a carriage ride. It's kind of a cool little event.
Sounds like it would be
Yeah.
a big loss.
Yeah, well, yeah,
It would.
Santa Claus comes in on a fire truck. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're still
Yeah,
waiting to see what's going to
people
happen with
wander
Winterfest.
around.
Tell us
Yeah.
about Courtney Roop. This is a Dryden, one of our Dryden
No, it's a
residents.
Groton story.
Jane, sorry.
There's a benefit at the Groton Hotel, November 22nd from 3 to 10, I believe, for Courtney Roop. Courtney has been afflicted by a very rare disease called RSD, reflex sympathetic disorder, I think, also known as complex regional pain syndrome. And what happens is that there's an injury, there's usually an initial injury, surgery or something, and the injury heals, but the pain is all out of proportion to what happened. So, and the pain continues.
And the benefit is it?
And so the benefit is to help Courtney and her family. I think there may be some kind of
When and where is that, Glennis?
This is at the Groton Hotel, and this may be the first event at the Groton Hotel, which we've been waiting for the Groton Hotel
And
to
is there a
reopen
set
for a
time?
couple years. 3 o'clock, November 22nd,
3 o'clock, November 22nd at the Groton Hotel.
at the Groton Hotel.
Awesome.
Cool. All right, let's wrap it up for Mike Nasello, Glynis Hart, Luda Petro, Carrie Blakinger. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks to Joe Scaglione, who gave us those images that we used in our introduction. He works with photography 4D. So thanks, Joe. We appreciate it. Until next time, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.